Okay, guys, so welcome in. This is the first ParaWeirdos podcast. I'm Beardo.
I'm not. And I'm Shavdo. I'm Purple.
That started well.
Yeah.
Right,
Perfectly.
so me and my friend Shavdo, aka Purple, we have been discussing a podcast for months now, right?
A lot of months.
Yeah. And basically we were just gonna do what we were both doing on YouTube, but together. And I'm like, maybe we need something a bit different to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I just had this. I was listening to a podcast, and I was listening to horror story podcast, basically, and then heard this real life horror story, and I was like, "That's what we need to do."
You did what with it? Yeah. So what's that word?
What did I say?
You heard? Oh, I heard it.
I heard it.
Oh, you
I'm
heard it.
Welsh. And
It's how we hear in the past tense. We heard.
Yeah.
I cited it too. I cited it with my eyes.
My eyes is.
I've got 4 of those fuckers. This is going well.
Right. So,
Right.
just for everyone that may, for some bizarre reason, be listening to us, how much do you know about this plan that I've got?
Absolutely nothing. No, you literally said, I'm going to tell you a story. And then I had like flashbacks to being a kid and I got all scared. And that's all I know.
Right. So I'm going to tell you a story, but I'm going to send you an image for you to look at, and I'll put it up on screen for everyone that's watching on YouTube. I'm also going to upload this to like Beancast or something like that. And the reason I'm going to
Beancast? Is that like a porn site?
no, it should be. And the reason I'm going to I'm going to put up basically an audio broadcasting something or other, and I'm going to use this image in the thumbnail. Because let me explain. I listened to this story, and I had no idea about the painting they were talking about. And the story itself creeped me out. Now, I'm easily jump scared, but I'm not easily creeped out. And when I'm listening... when I'm listening to this story, I'm in work. There's loads of noise everywhere, and I've got these little headphones in just trying to pass some time. And this entire story revolves around a haunted or cursed painting. And I heard this entire story, and I was like, that was creepy as shit. Then I saw the painting. And I'm not going to give my reaction away, because I want your reaction. Because
I don't want to see the painting. You know what happened last time we did a horror stream? I dreamt I was the lead singer of ABBA. I'm not one of the good lead singers.
Right, so to everyone that is listening and will be watching, you will have already seen what this photo looks like. It'll be on screen at some point now, or it'll be in the thumbnail for an audio recorded podcast. So, Purple, let me take you back to 1996 in the Ukraine.
Okay.
Yeah, much more peaceful time.
Much more peaceful time, yeah.
So, Ukrainian artist Svetlana Telets, and if I've said that wrong, I'm really sorry.
No, say it again, just in case you did say it wrong.
Svetlana Telets.
Svetlana Telets. It's Svetlana Telets, okay. Sounds like
See, he did it much better there.
I'm Svetlana Telets. Welcome to Babe Station.
Right, so she painted a painting known as the Rain Woman or Woman in the Rain.
That's really weird, because they used to call me the Rain Man.
I can't think
it's
why.
The autism thing. Gotta go to Kmart.
Right, so it's rumoured that those that are seeing the painting are made to feel uneasy as if the woman is watching them. When you see this, you'll see why. And I'm going to show you before I finish the story, right?
Thanks. I don't want to see it anymore.
Now, the painting is known for being one of the most haunted or most cursed paintings in the world. This is documented. This isn't just some urban legend. this is a story that has been in newspapers. There are accounts from people that have bought the painting.
Why have I got a feeling, right? You and Mrs. Geek have sat downstairs, painted the most horrifying picture ever, and thought, well, use a Ukrainian name because Viana Betitipo. And we're just going to scare the shit out of him. And then in 2 hours' time, you're going to be at my living room window with a fork just scratching down it.
No, so... No.
And I'll be like, she's come alive!
Right. So I listened to the entire story, and the original podcast about the story was over an hour long, and it was not a comedy. It was just some guy giving the story up, and I was getting well creeped out by it. And then I looked at the painting, and I was like, holy shit. My initial impression, and then the more I looked at it, my initial impression was one thing, and then the more I looked at it, the more I was like, oh, fuck, no. No. I wouldn't have that in my house. Maybe it's because I'd already heard the story. So before I tell you the rest of the story, I'm going to send you this. And I want you... I
don't even want to fucking look.
I don't think you'll find it that... I've lost it. Where's it gone? Where you gone? Ah, bollocks. Oh, there we go. Right. So in your inbox now will be the painting.
I fucking know this painting. I hate this painting.
Right. Now, just that painting, does that not personify depression? I literally...
A hat's made out of pubes? For starters, and you say depression, in some respects, it makes me feel a bit better about myself because her nose is bigger than mine.
Now, I initially opened the... I've searched for the image, I looked at it, and I was like, that's crap. And then I looked again, I was like, that's horrible. That is glum. The elongated face, the look of pure, like, disinterest on her, and then the rain dripping off, the thunder sky behind her, everything. I was just like, that's quite haunting. And I don't know why.
Apparently, it's literally fucking haunted as well.
Well, yeah.
I mean, to be honest, if you look at it carefully, now, I want you to look at it, yeah? And I'm going to say 2 words to you and tell me I'm wrong, okay? Celine Dion.
Fucking hell. It does. And her heart does go on, apparently.
Apparently this one didn't know she just got in a gorilla suit and just fucked.
I mean,
and if she got 2 marbles, like or glass balls like David Bowie in Labyrinth, just at the centre of her chest.
I'm not entirely sure what they are, but there's just something. After hearing the story and seeing that picture, my initial reaction was I laughed, and then the more I looked at it, the more I was like, "Oh, there's something fucked up with that." And then I got as far as to thinking that, to me, looks like somebody in a certain frame of mind, and this does play into, like, I did some more research on it, so I'm gonna do a quick skim over the story. But
thanks. I'm gonna keep the picture up while you're telling me the story.
Yeah, right. Right.
But think twice.
Baby, think twice. The haunted painting is now a legend with an equally haunting backstory. Svetlana Telets painted this when she was in university. She was in the Odessa Art University. And she claims that for 6 months after graduating her art school, she always had this feeling of somebody watching her, following her, feelings of anxiety, and there was always something just out of sight. And then she painted the feeling of this is what she thinks or perceived to have been watching. And I'm like, that's Rod Hull's emu in a top hat. That's scary.
With Rod Hull's nose?
Right. So she painted this, but doesn't really remember the process. She was like, I'm going to paint what I'm feeling, and then basically blanked out pretty much for 5 hours, and says it was like something took over her and was drawing through her. Basically, it was painted in her mind's eye, which the more I look at the photo or the painting, and the more I think of that, I'm like, yeah, this is adding some creep factor to it.
I don't understand why she was wearing a floppy hat and then the flaps have come up. Do you like?
Maybe he really likes the rain.
Do you remember like the car in Dumb and Dumber? The dog wanted to go over a hill. He used to do that.
Yeah,
It's the
that's what it was.
Kind of
Speed bump.
So perhaps this was the thing standing behind her, but at this particular moment, this is why the woman's looking down. She's jumping.
Maybe.
That's why things have come up. Yeah, she's just hit a metaphysical speed bump.
Maybe. Right, so Svetlana claims the feeling was possession-like. Took about 5 hours. But given the history I'm about to tell you, I reckon that she conjured this painting as opposed to painting it. I mean, especially when you put in that she doesn't remember.
There's a question I have there is, right? So there are certain feelings like I need a toilet, yeah, or I'm hungry, or I'm a bit depressed. I couldn't say to you, like if I came to you tomorrow and said, you know what, yesterday I felt a bit possession-y. I couldn't describe anything as possession-like. Do you know what I mean? So she described.
But you've never been possessed.
But apparently she has, and many fucking times, like it was a hobby. I described it as possession. The last person that used that, wasn't it Ronnie DeFeo, the guy from Amityville, who said, it kind of felt like I was possessed. And that didn't work out all too well for him or his family.
And I don't think he was alone on that. Just saying, maybe...
Apparently there's a devil in the basement.
No, I mean, he killed 6 people and not one of them woke up in between shots.
Can we make an agreement now, right? That we stop talking about Amityville, but we go into all the recent stuff about Amityville on the next podcast. Because some of the stuff that's come out in the last year is remarkable about what was made up and what was about the DeFeos and the people that were featured. What were the names?
Ed and Lorraine Warren were there at one point as well.
Yeah, but whether they're in a spirit box or but I definitely think we should cover that because there's a lot on that one. Anyway,
back
to Celine.
I was just about to say something. I was like, no, we actually need to keep that for a podcast. Right, so Celine Slevlata Tellets then spent a month reworking the painting. She put it for sale in that gallery, and for some reason, I mean, it's an ugly ass painting. Let's be honest. But certain people have seen.
Like it's been attacked by the Just Stop Oil kids as well, doesn't it? Either that or it's been to a bukaka party.
But anyway, people were
service. Don't Google that.
No, don't. People were feeling drawn to it. And everyone described it as a haunting painting and a pale woman, which is a great description. It is quite haunting, and she's very, very pale. Yeah. Right. So a businesswoman comes in to the art gallery where it's being displayed. The woman's name is Larissa. I've fact checked this.
She TV show.
That's this is Larissa.
Oh, okay. It would have been better if Clarissa would have bought it.
Yeah, she could have explained it.
Or Sabrina. That's what you did there.
Yeah, I thought it was quite good. So Larissa, well-dressed businesswoman, well-to-do. As soon as she laid eyes on it, she's like, I want to buy that painting. After purchasing the painting, Larissa takes the painting home and hangs it in her bedroom. I mean, why in the fuck would you hang that thing in your bedroom watching you sleep for a start?
The last thing she hung in her bedroom was her ex-husband. She's got to be that kind of person, isn't she?
Maybe.
You wouldn't lie down in bed and think, oh, I think I'm going to crack one out now. This is in the room.
No. Oh, dear. But it wasn't long before she tried to return the painting, as she had a constant feeling of someone watching her. Now, if you put a painting in your bedroom, you're going to feel like a painting of a person or a dog You're going to feel like you're being looked at. But, yeah. So, but then it escalated a little bit into her feeling a presence in her house. Like there was something there with her, that she wasn't alone, even though she lived alone. And there was little noises and little things that she never heard before this painting. So she rang Svetlana Telly sounds better, doesn't it?
I'm calling
Svetlana Telly.
I'm going with
that'll do.
Yeah,
Celine Tetley.
Celine Teabags.
And she rang and complained to the artist about the Rain Woman, and she left a voicemail, and the voicemail was, "Please pick her up. I cannot sleep. It seems there is someone in the apartment besides me. I've taken it off the wall and I've hidden it behind the closet."
I sent exactly the same message to my mother-in-law. I've taken her off the wall. I've hidden her behind the closet. I feel like she's next to me all the time. Okay, I have one question so far. What year was this painted?
1996.
Okay.
So they were answer phones.
1996. Yeah, that was my go in there, was the answer phones.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite a modern story in the grand scheme of stories.
Yeah.
Right, so she returned the painting to Svetlana. Svetlana takes it back to the art studio, puts it up, and is sold again almost immediately. The second buyer this time is a young man, and he hangs it in his living room. And he was aware of the story of the original person bringing it back and getting freaked out and stuff, but didn't believe any of it. But then the painting is hung in his apartment for a couple of days, and then he starts to experience what he described as strange things. Strange things around the painting, and he decided to get rid of her a month later. And his documented claim was, "I dream of her every night. She appears and follows me like a shadow." And he said he was giving it back. So basically, that's how he described it when he gave it back. Like, I don't want this thing. So then, for a third time, the picture is sold, and the third buyer claimed that he had seen the woman depicted in the Rain Woman somewhere. I imagine if you'd actually seen that woman in real life, she would stand out.
Well,
half
she
ostrich.
Stands in the middle of Odessa University, just looking down at the kids. There were nights of endless pleasure, just in the corner.
But because he thought he recognised the woman, the subject of the painting, he thought that even with the two previous issues that he could get along without any problems. Turns out that was a bit of a mistake, because he starts to feel uneasy around it. And then he claims that he was looking at the painting. You know, you buy something that costs money and you put it on your wall and you're like, "Ooh, that's nice, that."
In your bedroom at some point.
And the more he looked, the more he looked into her eyes, the more freaked out he was getting by the white eyes. Now, I'm not sure what he means there, because she's clearly, to me, looking down.
Well, that would mean, right, so that if he's looking into her eyes, then she's above his bed on his headboard side, and he's looking backwards at her like, "I've got a thing for gorilla women."
That has just taken this to a whole new level of creepy.
Exactly, and that explains all of the additions from owner number 3.
Right, so this third buyer then claims that he starts seeing her eyes everywhere, even when he's not with the painting. He can feel her eyes basically boring down into his soul, and he's getting creeped out by it when he's nowhere near the painting.
Thanks for sending me the picture, by the way. It's nice of you.
Yeah, it's only the original one that haunts people.
You were doing.
A little bit. And then he gets this premonition, or more of a feeling, that he is going to drown because of the painting. The eyes are giving him some sort of premonition that he is going to drown, because he's getting the feeling of drowning in her eyes. So then he claims, and this is where it gets really fucked up, that he started to see the woman leaving the painting. Like, he's in his apartment and he can hear somebody moving around in his home. Why all these people are single, I don't know. Maybe because of their poor taste in art.
Minimise the image of the painting, just so you know. Not that I'm buying into any of this, but just in case, I've minimised the image of the painting.
So he hears somebody, like there is another person moving around his home when there's nobody there. And then he can feel these eyes just staring at him. He thinks it's the painting, so he returns the painting to the gallery. So that's the third person in 3 months that is like, nope, I can't handle this shit. Back you go. Now, Svetlana at this point must be like, all right, I need to bin this. Nobody likes it. I've told them it's haunted just to get rid of the fucking thing, and it keeps coming back. Right, so the painting then sits, or finds its way to a furniture salon in Venista. It's up for sale, because the art galleries, obviously, they change everything up every couple of months, whatever. And nobody wants it. There's not that draw to it that was originally there.
Because the woman's left the painting and she's chasing old Droney McCarson.
However, the customers of the salon start to make claims of seeing the woman outside of the painting after they've looked at it. And they then start to get the feeling that they know her and they have at some point seen her or interacted with her. But they can't place where she came from. But nobody is comfortable with it. It's getting creepy, right?
No, it's fine. I'm just not looking at it. It's fine.
So Svetlana herself claims that the painting was searching for an owner and not the other way around. So then 11 years pass, and then a musician called Sergei Skachko. Sergei Skachko.
He said definitely jazz. He's definitely a jazz musician.
He's not. He's in a metal band. He's in a metal band.
They've ruined that for me now. Everyone wanted to know if Sergei Skachko was a Ukrainian scat artist.
Maybe he did scat metal. Nobody's ever done that. That'd be new.
That's new.
Right. 2007. Yep. He tracks down the painting. He actually went out looking for it after hearing the stories and was like, I want that painting. What a lunatic. So that's 11 years later.
Yep.
So he gets the painting, feels like the painting belonged to him. And this was all due to an article about the haunted painting, the feelings he gave, which obviously goes into far more detail and people's experiences are more fleshed out. So he goes and buys the painting and says he knows everything about it and he will accept everything that comes with it. Basically takes it back to Russia, where he's from. I don't think he'd find that trip quite as easy these days.
No. He have a few challenges.
And he's hanging in his office.
Painting to country.
Now, I have a bit of an issue with this part of the story. He took it back to Russia and he hung it in his office. Yet his profession is he's in a metal band.
No, I would say, I do know, you yourself know a lot of musicians.
Yeah.
It is still kind of a thing where musicians do have an office.
I mean, I've got friends in metal bands, quite big metal bands, and their offices are giant recording studios where a garage should be.
Perhaps that's where
maybe it's just the translation is lost in, because that's the other issue I had, was everything was in Ukrainian and Russian. But anyway, to this day, that's where the painting remains. And according to Sergei, he's not afraid of the paintings or the hauntings, and he's got no plan of returning it.
And did Sergei finish his sentence with simples? That'd be amazing if that's how the whole story ended.
I was waiting for that. So that's the story of that painting. But then, like, obviously, I listened to an hour-long, fleshed-out version of it, and the way they were describing it, they had voiceover people doing the Ukrainian accents, the Russian accents, and I was like, "Fuck, this, like, I watch a lot of horror, and not a lot gets under my skin. But for some reason, it was like the hairs on the back of my neck with this story, and I was like, that was a pretty cool story. And then when I looked at the painting, I was like, oh my fucking god.
I think it both has. It has that effect, but there is a huge but. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't you think it is awfully similar to the story that was around mid-80s to mid-90s, which was the story of the painting of the crying child?
God damn it!
Do you remember? It was in this country, wasn't it? Apparently, the person had painted. She painted the picture of a child that died, and then so many people bought it, and there were cursed.
There's cursed copies of it everywhere.
Yeah. And this seems very, very similar to that.
But when was the Crying Child created? That was 80s, wasn't it?
Early 80s. Yeah, early 80s. Just before I was born.
So what we have surmised already is this entire thing is a rip-off.
But maybe not, because it doesn't necessarily mean that kind of thing. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's completely untrue. So how about I give you an absolutely true story that I believe is nothing but coincidental. Yep.
Okay.
There is a road or a street, I have no problem naming street, it's called Frampton Way in Great Bar, Birmingham. Okay?
Right.
Now, Frampton Way in Great Bar, Birmingham has a series of 6 houses. Yeah, and since 1960s, in order of the 6 houses, the first house, everybody that's lived there, one person has committed suicide. The next house to it, always divorce. House next, suicide. House next to it, divorce. House next to it, suicide. Right?
Right.
Just to put this in perspective, the third house along, right, was my godfather, who committed suicide. The next house was us, my mum and dad.
Oh.
Yeah.
Fuck you didn't live in number 3.
I know, yeah. No, but a lot of these houses now, they go a long, long time without being sold. And if you asked my dad, he would swear to you the amount of stuff he saw in that house was like ridiculous. Like I've never bought into any of it.
Yeah.
Because I said to you, like, we were talking the other day, and like you I think your ears picked up when I said I would share with you why I believe.
Yeah.
Now, I can't tell you for certain what it was, but I can tell you exactly what happened. So the first weird thing that ever happened in that house, was I had a dream, but it's never occurred ever, and I've searched, and it's the strangest thing. So I open my eyes, I'm in my bed, look up, and there is a man in the doorway with a gun. Yeah?
Right.
And I then wake up from this dream of the man in the doorway with a gun. Yeah?
Right. Wait
1 second, I haven't finished. I then look up, and there's a man in the doorway with a gun.
When you wake up?
At this point, and then I wake up again. I have the same dream, exactly the same dream, 6 times in a row.
That is weird.
Yeah, but the very next day, I'm because obviously I'm a bit, as you know, I'm a bit special anyway, you know. So of these things, it's kind of affected me, even though it's only a dream. Yeah.
Yeah, but dreams are powerful, bro. Like, really.
It did really affect me. The next night, I lay in bed, and I heard a noise by the door, and the last thing I remember was a hand, and I passed out with fear.
When you say a hand, you saw a hand?
I saw a physical hand on top of my quilt, and I passed out, just completely blacked out as a child, completely passed out. And I told my dad the next day, and he called me a liar. Said it didn't happen.
Oh.
He was like, no, it didn't happen, can't have happened. And by this time...
How old were you?
How old was I? So I think I must have been about 4, maybe 5.
Maybe his reaction of, it didn't happen, you're a liar, was a, shit, he's genuinely scared, I'll tell him he's wrong. Even if I think it's real, I'll tell him he's wrong.
Dad used to get like really scared about like this kind of, because as you know, we've discussed my birth mother in detail. Obviously, she was not a nice person, but she also used to dabble in things that I know you hate a lot. And you would never do. And she used to dabble in all kinds of the stuff you won't do on ghost hunts and whatnot.
Yeah, I won't touch those things.
And she was like obsessed with it.
Yeah, that's why I won't touch them.
That freaked my dad out more.
Yeah. Yeah, as skeptical as I am, like, I am fully aware of the science behind why those boards can't work.
Yeah.
But my own personal experience tells me otherwise. Like, you can see micro movements that you're unaware of and all the rest of it. Absolutely fine. I can agree with that. But when a glass flips up the right way, and bizarrely, I've Googled it, and it's a regular occurrence. Not so much with just the boards, but in poltergeist houses and stuff. Apparently, a glass levitating, flying across, bursting mid-air is quite a regular thing for a haunted property. But I saw that glass. It came up probably 7-8 inches, flipped up the right way, shot across the room. And when I say shot, the sound, my microphone might not pick it up, was like somebody did that. They just flicked, like a flick on the glass. You heard the tink, and then they just woof. But the guy, basically the board was picking on someone. And it was, his dad had died a couple of years before. And even at the point, up until the exact moment that glass broke, I thought it was one of the boys being a dick. I genuinely was like, you boys, I think we were actually arguing about it. But there was certain things that were being said, and we were like, you can't be from Germany if your name's Dean, you idiot. And we're having a go at go at the ghost, you know? And then he starts saying stuff, and then this boy, I won't say his name because I haven't asked him. He sat in the corner, and I just see this one tear come down his face. So I was like, shit, that's talking about his dad. Because at this point, we didn't know. And then he shouted something, and as he shouted it, this glass it may have been something completely natural. Everyone's tensions are high. Yeah. People are starting to get angry, and then suddenly all of our energy made this glass flip up the right way, shoot across the room, burst, and then only shower the guy that the board was telling us about's dad. I think there were 12 of us in the room. I think there were 6 of us on the Ouija board. And this wasn't a purchased Ouija board. This was a backgammon Monopoly board with marker pen letters, a pentagram in the center because we thought you had to have a pentagram. And we made this thing look as satanic as we could for a bunch of 16-year-olds with a marker pen and a Monopoly board. But it was a red Monopoly board, so I think somebody drew a goat's head on it as well, come to think of it. We made it look as evil as we could, and then it was meant to be a bit of fun, and it just got... When that glass broke, there was just this mass evacuation. Unfortunately for me, it was in my parents' house. Mass evacuation. We all sort of pile out. Somebody closes the door, and we're all sat there looking at the glass, and we had this like bubbled glass.
Yeah.
It's a wooden door, but there was a big pane of glass on the top half of the door, all bubbled. So you could see behind it, but you could never make out features.
It's like a distorted, semi-blown glass, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got the ridges in it.
And we're all just staring at it like something is going to move. And we were all freaked out. We all left the house. And we're outside. We're all like sparking up cigarettes and all the rest of it. My next door neighbour comes out and was like, do you lot think you're funny? Blah, 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 blah. I was like, oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. Look, we were just messing about. She was like, yeah, I was watching you through the window. Those things are bad news, blah, 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 blah. As we turned to walk off, there is frost on all the cars. I think it was actually Halloween I can name the year. It was 1997. As we turn around, one of the boys, and I know it was one of the boys because it was the typical, but it said Dean, which was the ghost's or spirit's name, was here, but it was the W-A-Z and then E-R-E. But still, a couple of us freaked out. And then we all went back into the house and we all sat there. My mate smokes the devil's lettuce and he's just sat there like, what are you lot running for? And we were like, did you not hear or see any of that? He was like, yeah, but, it's all down to kinetic energy, anger in the room. And it's like, this guy's 15 going on 30, yeah? Shut the fuck up. It was a demon called Dean, all right? And then that's as much as the story that I have ever said to anyone, sort of on YouTube, on Twitch, because when somebody says, do you do Ouija boards? I'll say no, and then I'll go that far with the story. But what happened was I got that scared by it, I basically ran away from my parents' house that weekend. I was like, I couldn't sleep there. I couldn't go back in there. And my mum came to get me from my mate's house, like, you were coming home. And I went into the house, and she was like, what have you done? I was like, all right, I had a party. And she's like, well, I can tell. It stinks of weed, cigarettes, and there was half-empty cans all over. Why didn't you clean up before me and your dad got home? And I was like, I didn't want to come back into the house. Why? And I blamed them. I was like, I was scared of how you'd react. Because I didn't want to admit it. So, but I start seeing things at the corner of my eye, and I've always got this feeling. At the time, I had a 50cc motorbike to get me back and forth because I was working. And every now and again, I'd look in the mirror and I'd see something, and it scared the absolute piss out of me every time. Like, it took me months to get over it. But then all the other boys were all like, yeah, same thing. So I moved in with my mate Chris, or Sparky Gamer. He won't mind me talking about it. I moved in with him and his family. Basically, I couldn't tell my parents, and they were like, right, you're going off the rails. I was like, right, ta-da, bye. I'm 16. I can do what I want. So I left. I go to live in his house, and he was the guy smoking the devil's lettuce that never reacted to anything. I'd been living with him 3 weeks, and he was like, you have to go. I was like, what do you mean? He was like, everything that you were hearing, the footsteps up the attic stairs, all of it. He said, I'm hearing all of it, and I'm seeing something. Corner of my eye every now and again. You gotta get out. I was like, oh, where do I go here? Like,
see, I find it really interesting because, like, Mr. Gray will say, obviously, he's like, I don't believe in Ouija boards. He's like, and I have no problem doing one.
Yeah.
I have no way ration to say, yes, I believe in Ouija boards. I don't believe in Ouija boards. I don't believe they work. I can't say they possibly work, but ask me to use one. I'll be like, nope. Nope, not a chance.
That was a question I've asked a lot of people. Obviously, being involved in the paranormal stuff on YouTube, and I'm very skeptical. I'm not skeptical of the paranormal. I believe in the paranormal. I'm skeptical of videos, skeptical of the shite that's put out. Like, I was one of those guys that was fully into Most Haunted. I was fully invested. We'd watch it on a Friday. UK living, all pile into somebody's house. As soon as that ended, we'd all be gone. Down to Neath Abbey. We'd all be down there with a torch. I mean, phones didn't even have recorders on them then. We'd all be down there, and we'd be like, is there anyone there? Can you give us 1 knock for yes, 2 knocks for no? And then my mate Monkey would just fart once or twice, depending on whatever was funny. We'd all laugh, and then we found an abandoned farmhouse. Right, we'll go in there and try it in there. Got a bit freaked out, but nothing ever really happened. And I was like, I think this show may be lying.
Well, do you know what I find very, very interesting? Do you want to know something very, very interesting? So obviously, you know what I do for a job, and I've worked with some broadcast companies and whatnot. Yeah. Here's an interesting. How can I put it? I'm gonna do it so we can talk about it on YouTube. Okay.
Yeah.
An interesting concept I will put out. Imagine if it were true that there were certain broadcast laws put into place that said that if any ghost hunting program on any television channel in the UK, and I believe in America, prospectively, of course, were to catch any evidence of a ghost, that it wouldn't be allowed to be broadcast on television.
Oh.
Wouldn't that be interesting? And let me just follow up on that with, we both remember, and I'm sure it affected you as it affected me. Both remember Ghostwatch.
Yes, Mr. Pipes.
Do you remember what Ghostwatch caused? Do you remember the kid with the letter?
No, I don't.
So basically what happened is a kid watched Goats Watch, didn't get to the very, very end, left a letter saying that now I know that there's an afterlife.
Oh.
And he went.
Oh, no.
And wouldn't it be amazing if a year after that, Ofcom then started with other national broadcasts to put in something into place as a just in case? Because if you imagine, if ghost footage was actually broadcast on television, imagine
Yeah.
what it'd actually do. That is actually the legal reason for entertainment purposes only in the UK. That's the actual reason.
I knew there was more to it because I watched a podcast with Yvette Fielding and Casper Site, and he asked her about the for entertainment purposes only.
Yeah.
And I saw her squirm, and I wrongly assumed by the sounds of that they were calling you bullshit and told you you're only allowed to call it entertainment, and that's not the case. Wow.
Not the case. Yeah. But you see, there's only so much that can be said. So obviously, I've got like smaller contracts with like channels like Quest and Really and stuff like that. And it's amazing the stuff that comes through. Obviously, the stuff you have to sign. There's some stuff you can say, some stuff you can't. But
yeah, non-disclosure and all that.
Yeah, if that was true.
Wow.
Which is why you kind of have to look through everything with a certain thing. So one of the things I do find absolutely amazing is the whole Blaney thing with Barry Guy.
Yeah.
Which I find glorious. Whereas obviously the host of that programme I have known for 10 years, Jane Harris, I have known her for 10 years.
Right. Barry Guy. Right,
Barry
obviously
Guy
I've...
He's one of Zach Baggins' good friends, basically.
Yeah,
So Zach Baggins created Help My House Is Haunted, and
I went to do a full debunking video on Barry Guy. And I think it was you that said, don't do it, he will copyright the shit out of you.
Because
I was like, all right.
A copyright strike.
Yeah. He's fake as Pammy's tits.
Yeah.
But he has basically outright said Laney and Ben are fake.
Yeah.
It's like,
He's outright said they're fake. Because basically what happened is, obviously, they've made a lot of stuff and used Zach Baggins, and he's good friends with Zach Baggins, and he's also good friends with Chris Fleming. Chris Fleming, the person that brought together that K2 meter that we all know and love. He's the first person that used... I think he used it first on Dead Famous.
All right.
So he kind of made that kind of a popularised thing. So EMF's always been a thing. But he's the one that introduced us to the contradiction, which is absolutely amazing. If there's high levels of EMF, then there's a ghost. But obviously if there's high levels of EMF, why are you using an infrared camera to lower the temperature? Because if there's high levels of EMF, it's a radiation. It will generate more heat than cold. But, that's by the by.
That's like...
It's an interesting concept, isn't it?
All of these ghost hunting shows, they've got their infrared... the heat thermometer, camera, gun, whatever... It does the same thing. We used to use them in one of my jobs to track fires through air ducting.
Yeah.
And I saw somebody debunk this gun and say that only works for this distance, which is 30 inches. And I was like, that's wrong, because we used to use it to a ceiling that is a good couple of 100 feet up.
Yeah.
So that debunk was wrong. But I'm like, why are all the ghosts warm?
Yeah.
Every show I watch, the ghost is warm. It's giving off heat. And I'm like, that's the exact opposite of every ghost story you've ever heard. People recount the real tales. The air gets sucked out of the room. Mm-hmm. Or the heat gets sucked out of the room. It's like, oh, well, maybe the ghost is drawing the heat in to materialise. Hang on. When did ghosts learn about fusion?
Another interesting concept is, if you get an EMF meter... Yeah. And you actually use it as it's meant to be used in the field. How do you use it?
Well,
I find this amazing. I learnt this a couple of weeks ago. I was mind blown by this.
Now, I know EMF meters were not intended for ghosts. They were intended to disprove ghosts. High EMF can cause auditory hallucinations. It can cause the funhouse effect where you're feeling
lines.
dizzy.
Remember the ley line thing? Yeah.
Yeah, it was basically meant to say, actually, there's not a ghost in your house. Mm-hmm. You're a constant EMF 4 or 5 that can cause dizziness, hallucinations, auditory phenomena, etc. So, yeah, why do we use them?
Well, no, it's how they're used that's the interesting thing. Because you watch a ghost hunting program, so we'll pretend this is the EMF meter. Yep. And they'll carry it round. Yep. And they'll carry it round. Watch somebody out in the field using the EMF meter. How to get it work properly. You look like a mental person. You have to move it.
Yeah.
It has to be moving in a really nonsensical kind of manner.
Oh.
I moved it so much that the ghost remote turned off the light.
I've always gone out and I'll hold it for a bit, but then I'll put it stationary on something and then stare at it like, light, you bastard, light. And I don't know what other people are doing, but I can count on my hands how many or on my fingers how many times mine has actually gone off.
What do you think, in your opinion, as you've done investigations years now, right?
Yeah.
What would you say, if anything, that you think is more or less an infallible piece of something that's simple that you could use to capture a piece of evidence? What would you think would be the best thing?
The only thing that I trust, that I believe in, is myself. I don't think any of the equipment can ever... There's no scientific proof that any of it works for the way we are using them. At the same point, there's nothing to say it doesn't work the way... Or there might be, but I haven't found it. I tend not to look too deep in... Like, the apps, for example, the Spirit Talk apps and all that bollocks. I'm 100% in the know that they are word banks. If a ghost could use your phone to tell you a word, then why does it only have a selection of 50 words?
Yes.
If it can manipulate your device. However, me and Steve are sat in a house in North Wales, or me and Dean are sat in a care home in South Wales, or me and Mrs. Geek are in a castle, and we've been sat there for 3 hours and nothing has happened. And you're like, oh. And then suddenly your phone will go, library. Oh. Now, I don't think for a single second that a ghost has done that. But it'll be like, I wonder if there was a library here. Oh, a quick look on Google. Actually, there was a library there. And it's I don't use it as a tool to prove the existence of spirits and ghosts. I use it as a tool of this investigation is dead. Suddenly that word has come through and you're out investigating. You're trying to entertain whilst trying to find something I think I've seen and experienced in my own world. And that's all I use those for. EMF and other things like EVPs, there's no EVP sessions on any of my videos because I saw the Ouija brothers with the jacket and they were like, we've just disproved it for everyone. And I'm like, I'll take that. 100% you have proved it to me.
Yeah.
I'm going to buy one now because Steve said to me, actually, you can turn the settings off and just use it as a recorder without the stupidly high-set microphone, but you will get nothing. And I'm like, all right, cool. Because then if I get something...
Exactly, yeah.
Maybe that's something to shout about.
It's very strange, obviously, because the painful thing is, and it's got to be painful, especially for someone like you, who's like been doing all these investigations and whatnot, it's remarkable how once one person sets a trend, that then all their ghosts must seem to be subscribers to other YouTube channels that fake paranormal.
Yeah.
Because their ghosts also seem to learn the same tricks.
Yeah.
And it gets very annoying to actually kind of watch, because I've been like you, I've actually watched a lot of it to actually see something. You know, you want to see something. Now, obviously, my biggest problem is, it's what I've always said to you, my biggest problem is I always look for everything with a post-production head on.
Yeah.
Absolutely everything.
The problem is there is so much sensationalized shit out there.
Yeah. That
it takes away from the guys that are doing it for the right reasons. Now, I have seen teams that I will say are 100% real, 100% telling the truth. But I have seen something in the video where I'm going, actually, what that is something natural that you've mistaken.
But you did the same with me, didn't you?
But we did it with the milk bottle. The pair of us. We're arguing on on Messenger, and the pair of us got it so wrong.
Yeah.
And
but even then, we're the kind of people that will also then go, But I actually said, I think I looked at Mr. Gray's comment, and I
Yeah.
actually just went, do you know what? Now you've said that, that brings me round to that idea. And I think that's what differentiates us as people from if you go onto these channels, that no, it's ghost, no, it's a ghost. Whereas people can say what they want about people who see things from our perspective, but at least we'll go, okay then, let's have a look at things from that perspective. And that's a big difference, what people don't seem to realise.
I've got a lot of time for example, I'm not going to name the channel. He'd gone on an investigation, and then at one point in this investigation, he starts hearing something, and he's like, holy shit, after 12 years, I found something. I think I found something. And then he starts to tear up. And I'm in his premiere, and I'm like, oh my God, because he's asked me to look at this piece of evidence, and I know exactly what it is within seconds. And I'm like, I'm going to destroy this guy's fucking world. And I felt awful, because he's such a nice guy. And I'm like, it's a genuine mistake, but I know what it is. So then I stay in his premiere, I'm chatting to him and all the rest of it. And then I send him a private message after his premiere, because I don't want to take the wind out of his sails. There was a lot of people watching it. And I'm like, look, I know you asked me to look at it. I think I know what's caused it, and it's not paranormal. And then I'm waiting for the instantly blocked on Facebook, because that's happened. And he doesn't. He says, right, what is it? So I explain it to him. And then I explain to him, right, at this time frame, when you pan down, there's a clue there. And then the noise, and then this, and then I lay out what I think it is, and he messages me back, I really appreciate that, thank you, yeah, you're right. And I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of people be like, can you check this out? It's a real paranormal. No, it's not. Yeah. It's natural. You're not faking. There's a massive, huge difference between fakers and overexcited. I did it with Steve. I sent Mr. Gray a video. Have a look at this. There's some weird voice. I think you've got a bit of air in your throat and it's gurgled because you can hear your sleeve.
The best one I ever had was old Peter Parker. You know I'm talking about Peter Parker.
Yeah.
And he messaged me and he was like, oh, you've got to see this. You can't disprove this. And literally every single one, I was like, well, you've seen the one yourself where it just walks into the camera. He's like, no, I didn't walk into it.
Yeah, you did.
The portal in the kitchen was my favourite one. It's obviously just the LED light flicker and the shutter speed on his camera. And he's like, no, that's a portal to hell. And there's sometimes you just kind of fight in a losing battle.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm kind of sick of having to defend debunkers. Because it's like, you guys just want to shit on the paranormal. It's like, no, most of us don't. We want to find something tangible. And for every fake piece of shite video that's out there, it detracts. It makes people like me stood in an abandoned care home with the roof caving in around me with an EMF recorder and a video camera in my hand. It makes me look crazy.
Do you know what pisses me off the most? I'm sorry, I'm going to have to say this. I really apologise.
No, say it.
Right. So, you and I both know, like, how much effort Ouija Brothers have put into their channel. The money they've spent on equipment, them to spend on fuel, driving up and down the country, investigating into their Branders people. You know, they've both got, like, you know, the families and all, you know, and all that, right? And how many subs have they got on YouTube?
Exactly. Yeah, I know.
Do you know what I mean? And then you've got people like Really Haunted and Laney and Ben are doing it for next to nothing. And
they're not even in the house.
It's really bad. It's not even. I'm not being funny, right? It's not even good.
No, not at all.
It's not convincing. Lee's story is that ludicrous, and I'm just like, why are people throwing money at this guy?
But he's had people throwing money at him for years, and he keeps changing the narrative, and they haven't even realised what he's changing. I had somebody come into my comments the other day, and they were like, you've got some sort of narcissistic outlook on life. You're only doing this to make him look small. And I'm like, look, Slim Fast couldn't make that twat look small for a start. Secondly, do you remember when all of this was caused by a haunted doll? Excuse me? This started with his daughter and a haunted doll. But then he forgot about that. And now it's a rock from Romania for a castle, blah, 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 blah. then his kids.
There's always a different narrative. The movie, what
Yeah.
works. Sylvia C. Remember Sylvia? She tried to
Yeah.
marry her fucking ghost. She stood in the kitchen with a wedding dress on, sold the fucking story to Hello Magazine.
Do you know what's really bizarre to me is people say to me, Lee actually believes this, and I'm like, no, he doesn't.
No, he doesn't.
He can't believe it for a second because he sat there with editing software and recreating or creating everything, and he is acting to a camera. He's not legitimate. There's nothing at all legitimate. Maybe at some point way back when he heard a weird bump in his house and was like, that's odd. And then it happened again. He's like, I think I've got a ghost. But I even doubt that. I think he's looked at some ghost hunting programs, seen the paranormal pound gaining more weight, and gone, do you know what?
He's made so much money even before all this. Because the only reason I actually found out about him was from... So I'd made I'd become aware of this video, I'd made this video, and then this person had commented on my video.
Yeah.
And said, if you can get in touch with him, ask him about all the money he took from people before COVID, when he had really haunted. So he had Lunar Travels first.
Yeah.
Lunar Travels, he got into some trouble with, and then that went bye-bye somewhere. So then he started Really Haunted Limited.
Yeah, people booked flights
to take
and
everyone
shit.
to Chernobyl. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he said he couldn't afford to pay them back. Then deleted all their comments off Instagram. So if you go over to Instagram, because the beautiful thing about it is, it will still say you've got 131 comments if you've deleted all of them. There's only 2 there.
Yeah.
And you can still see all the ones he's deleted. And if you use the Wayback Machine, you can actually, I have confirmed that you can go back and you can see the in his collection of haunted stuff in the one room in the house.
Yeah.
The Ouija board that he found in the loft is actually there from that. So he's on that video, and he's on that little video, and you can see it on the Wayback Machine.
Brilliant. Like
So
2 seconds.
that's a
I've got to
fantastic
pee.
part. You go pee.
I will.
God,
I will be right back. Here's a quick word from our sponsor.
Hello, I'm Powell. He's going to create a haunting. Beardo, it's me, the person that lives inside Papa's head. Don't be mean to him or say bad swear words. He's a very fragile individual. While his head may look like a thumb, he's very fragile. Be careful. I did not know you were also Batman, but that explains quite a lot. I hope you're enjoying your pee-pee. Remember, any more than 3 shakes, and you're playing with it. Okay, I think you should actually go on to say what is the scariest true bit of ghost information or ghost story you've heard.
Outside of my own...
one that you would deem to be, yes, that's believable and true.
I'm probably going to lose a lot of people here, but the Battersea Poltergeist.
Go on, educate me on this one. I'm not sure I know this one.
Right, it predated 30 East Drive, and it was in the 50s in Battersea. It basically, the Conjuring 2, that entire haunting at East...
I thought that was Enfield.
Yeah, Enfield basically mirrored what had gone on in the 50s.
Right.
The woman was still alive like 2 years ago, but she was a child initially. So it started with knock-ins and bangings, and then it progressed to stuff appearing, disappearing. A paranormal investigator came in, but he had all the credentials. He's a well-known guy. He worked with Arthur Conan Doyle, and he'd worked with a who's who list of people. And he basically wanted to prove that ghosts were real. So he goes to this house and pretty much lives there for 6 months, experiences all of this stuff. But then it gets to a point where the ghost is leaving handwritten notes.
Right.
And they put in books in a room, they lock in the door, couldn't possibly have gone in, the kid couldn't possibly have gone in there because people are suspecting the kid. And then the notes, there's notes left, and she didn't have a key for this room that they'd use as a clean room, basically. And then they use handwriting experts like 20 years ago, and they're like, no, it's her writing. But how did she get in there? He had the only key and all the rest of it. So this poltergeist, they nicknamed Donald to try and make the kids feel safer about it.
So you know he got in the room, he just ducked.
You twat. They nickname it Donald, and then it turns out when he starts leaving the written notes that he is King Louis of France the Seventh, who was killed when he was 10. But then there's rumours that he actually escaped, but then drowned trying to get to the UK for safety, and somehow ended up in Battersea. Now that whole section of it, I'm like, yeah, that's bullshit, or potentially bullshit. But then part of me is like, one of the rules of a Ouija board is don't trust what the spirit is telling you.
Yes.
Because it could give you false names, it could give you whatever, it make you convinced.
Look at The Exorcist, it told her its name was Captain fucking Howdy.
Yeah, and he was Pazuzu. It wasn't. Yeah, Pazuzu in that.
It was meant to be Pazuzu, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was Pazuzu, but it was based on Zozo. Or two.
I thought Zozo was basically exactly the same, just from a different kind of folklore, or from like a.
I think they made
Zozo?
Pazuzu up for the
Zozo.
movie. Zozo is the Ouija board demon that everyone fears, and yeah, but it's always a young girl. She's always around the puberty age, and there was just something about that story up to a point I found entirely credible. Like, there were 5 people living in the house, because back then the grandmother still lived there, the parents, and then the stepson or the half brother, whatever he was, and then the daughter. And it was like, they're all in the room. There's paranormal investigators in the room, and they're communicating through the famous most haunted taps. But there's recordings of it. And then they take the girl to a hospital, and this doctor is like, she's doing it with a toe. She's got a deformed toe, and she's basically wearing a certain pair of boots, clicking a toe.
Fucking hell, do they think she's the drummer from Led Zeppelin?
And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense, because the banging at 2 points was so bad, the police were called, and the neighbours from 3 doors up came to the house at 3 o'clock in the morning, like, shut up. We are trying to sleep. What the hell is that noise? That's not somebody's toe, like. Exactly. And then I looked at it, and I was, the more I've read loads on it, and I'm giving a really quick synopsis of. They think it's one of the longest poltergeist hauntings that's ever been recorded, because in the end, it was about 6 years. But the initial, or the biggest part of it, was 5 or 6 months. But they had the press come there, like different people, and then it was proved to be fake. And then they asked this one lady from the press to come back from Scotland. She came back. She's like, I'll stay here, but my husband is staying as well. He's a police officer. But I'm going to stay in the same room, in the same bed as the young girl. And they go into bed, and this is all in her article, that she said to the little girl, right, your legs have to go in between my legs, and I have to hold your hands, and we'll go to sleep. And they lay in there, and obviously they can't sleep because they're uncomfortable and all the rest of it. And then she feels the kid being dragged out of the bed.
Right.
Pulls the kid back and says there's something pulling back. And she's then scared. Either she's going to hurt the kid or something's going to pull the kid out. Goes to scream for her husband, and then hears somebody else in the room breathing, but it's coming from underneath her, which is a bed. Now, a bed in the 50s is different to a bed now. So it could have been. But her husband comes in, turns the light on, there's nothing there, and he sees the kid drop.
Right.
And I was like, there is so much credible stuff in there that I'm kind of sold on it. Up until I think the haunting stopped at a point, but the kid she was a celebrity for it. At 15 years old, she was all over newspapers, and then suddenly this French king gets invented and letters, and the handwriting was proved to be hers. And there was a story about her working in Selfridges. And while she was in Selfridges, she got fired for stealing scissors and bobbins. And it turns out the real story was the staff she was working with. And there's a witness account that this stuff was just levitating and being thrown while they were working with her. So they fire her because everyone's scared. And then this woman, like, about 2 years ago, comes out and says, I actually remember working with her, didn't know her name, didn't know she was anything to do with that story, but I remember stuff being thrown at her all the time, and I thought people were bullying her and all the rest of it. And then I was like, but this is in the period where there's a clear line of the real stuff and then the fake stuff. But then the real stuff is still happening because other people have seen it in a workplace that didn't speak out for X amount of years. Most of these people have passed away now. And I'm like, and then I thought, the more I was thinking about it, the more I was like, what if it wasn't a poltergeist and it was an attempt at a possession? Like the classic possession stories. And then to go under the radar after all the press, all the police. I mean, this was massive. National newspapers, people camping out in the house, outside the house, caused carnage. And I'm like, what if the handwriting thing, it was her, but she was unaware. And she still claims she was 86 the last interview she did. And she was like, I did not write those letters. And it does look like my handwriting, but I did not write those letters. I'm like, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he's not real. What if that spirit basically convinced her to convince everyone he was fake and the whole thing could have been real? And then I've looked into, there used to be a river that flowed between the Thames and their house that could pass underneath their house, and it was a brutally cold winter, and it could, the banging and the cracking sounds, because there's audio recordings of it all, and it's phenomenal. I'm like, that's not really fucking toe. And it's like, what if it was the ice cracking because they turned the river into a sewage works or a sewage pipe or something under the house? Maybe it froze up on the bangs, but it was answering questions. And this guy, this paranormal investigator, he basically lived there for 6 months, trashed his entire life outside of it because he was like, this is where I prove my belief. And I'm fully invested. The house isn't around anymore. They've bulldozed it. There's flats there, and it's the one story where I'm like, even the stuff that was probably fake or proven to be fake has got a question mark over it.
I'm gonna have to look into that. That's quite a remarkable one.
There is a BBC 4 podcast on it, and the guy goes into great detail and even takes Kieran O'Keefe along for the ride. And at the end of it, Kieran O'Keefe is still sat there going, nah, it was the brother. And I'm like, now, Kieran, you've been a little bit hasty here. I like you.
So, it was interesting because obviously, I never actually put it up. I've still got it saved. I'll send it to you so you can watch it. The interview I did with Professor Finch.
Oh, yeah.
That used to be this, because obviously he used to do Most Haunted and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it was like, there's some really like fun bits in there because he's on about, because he used to work on Haunted Homes.
Yeah.
Program used to be on ITV. And he's like, oh yeah, they used to get us to help fake some of it. And he's on about, some of that. I think.
Do you know how they caught the mediums faking it?
I know they caught Derek Akora faking it. I remember them catching him with Creed Kafer.
But do you know what led to that? Because it wasn't just. Kieran O'Keefe is obviously famous for being the guy that made sure the information was fed to him.
Yeah.
But initially, he was a vet that caught him.
Yeah, because there's a secret recording, isn't there? In the studio,
yeah, he went into the bathroom.
In the Most Haunted Live.
Yeah, he went in. No, before that.
Oh, before that?
Yeah, he's gone into a bathroom somewhere in North London. It was a pub, I think. He's gone into the bathroom. He said, I need to go to the toilet. I need to, relieve myself, wash my face. I've just been possessed or whatever the case is.
Call Sam. Yeah.
His microphone was left.
Sam, take it out. That'd be amazing.
No, he wasn't. He hadn't been possessed or nothing. They just got to the property, and before he did his walk around, he was like, I need to go to the bathroom. And he left his microphone switched on, and a vet asked them to basically listen back to what he was saying. And he rang somebody. That. He rang somebody from the bathroom. This is the pub I'm in. What's the history on it? And then they can hear the full conversation. She says... I
really thought you were going to say he walked into the bathroom and goes, is there someone called Mary in here?
Mary loves dick. I would feel bad because he's no longer with us, but he was such a swindler. Because I genuinely have this thing. I truly believe that when they started with the best of intentions?
I don't. And there
Well,
is a reason that I don't.
Well, give me the reason.
There is a reason that I don't. It was almost, when it first started, and still, even many years into some effect, it was almost like a cult. The production, the post-production of that program, was done like nobody had ever seen before. So they did it in such a way. So, when you probably know this anyway, so when you actually put together a produced TV show or TV episode, your audio is generally captured externally.
Yeah.
And layered. But what they actually did is they would capture multi-layered audio from different external sources, and the editing team was the only real part that they weren't directly related or didn't have much to lose, because obviously Carl and Yvette were together.
Yeah.
They had Stuart was the main cameraman.
Yeah.
Was a relative, I believe.
I think he's a
and
brother-in-law.
The second cameraman they brought on was a relative of Stuart.
Yeah.
But nobody could ever say in the production team what was fake and what wasn't, because they never knew what was. They were never actually told anything but what the scene they were working on as a group, and then told to lay in the sound and cut together the pieces, and then it would all go to one main editor. Would all put it all together. So not even the production team knew what was being faked, because they didn't know what was there at the time.
The production team was Carl's.
No, because there were a few editors from series 2, and I tried to reach out to a couple of them about 6 months ago.
Yeah,
because I think there's 4 editors. They only did 1 episode each. Everybody else did almost hundreds of episodes, but there were 4.
Yeah.
They did 1 episode each, and it was pretty much all in the same series as well. Which is very, very, very unusual.
Yeah. Yeah.
I actually think it was always like a cult and always meant to be.
Yeah, I was fully invested and fully believed it to a point, and then he was like, I never believed the psychics, because I've never seen a psychic medium that has convinced me that their abilities are real. And
the thing is, right, is you say it's a load of work, but these people work on recommendation. And you see it nowadays, they were brilliant, they knew exactly what they're talking about. And you know, it's all Johnny Wishbone in it from... Was it Johnny Wishbone from Beverly Hills Cop?
Yeah.
Murphy. Johnny Wishbone.
I'm getting...
Yeah, it's all just very... It's all Barnum statements, it's all very open. It is... You know, the cold reading education system in America is huge now, isn't it? Because they've got dedicated colleges, universities for it.
Yeah, got a university campuses for it. It's incredible. Like, there was a time where I was probably like, it could be real, it couldn't be real, and then I saw Darren Brown.
Yeah.
And I was like, game over. Can't believe in any of it anymore. And I'm like, and that psychic, I think it was Brett that told me that psychic is still doing well. Even after being outed the way he was outed by Darren Brown. And let's be fair, Darren Brown wasn't rude. He was slightly confrontational, but he was very polite, but like, you're faking.
He was confrontational for a purpose, the same way as you have been, I have been, and others have been, in the way as if to say, you are taking people's money away from them, also giving them false hope.
Yeah, and that was probably the end of that for me, because there was a time in my life where I stopped believing totally. Because I as growing up, I had all manner of weird stuff, but maybe I was just a weird kid. And then as I turned to an adult, there was just like this space of nothing. I was like, how nuts was I? So guys, I have been Beardo. This has been my good friend.
I have been Shaved-o.
This has been my good friend Purple. We've been meaning to do this for months, and it's been joyous. I've really enjoyed this. So we will catch you next month, where we discuss Amityville. We break it down, and we'll come to a right. The first story, was it real or was it fake, or was it a bit of both?
I'm going to reach that it was It was a bit of both, and I think it's just a European recreation of the crying boy photo, which is also a very crying boy painting, which is also quite a convincing tale.
See, I was on a scale of 1 to 10. I was on an 8 until you told me that, and then I've had my second page open, looking at the crying boy like bollocks. Now I'm at a 4.
No, I'm somewhere in between, because that the story of the crying boy was also quite convincing, and so I'm at a 4, but it's a good story, and I really don't like the painting. And
that painting is horrible. It got so much worse when I saw the painting. Yep.
Yeah. Interesting fact. Did you know I'm actually scared of the dark?
How are you going to ghost hunt with me?
That's what's going to make it amazing.
Right, guys, we will catch you in a month's time. For now, Beardo and Papal are out.
Out.
Out.